Friends, sometimes European naivety and innocence just leave me at a loss, and the only thing that justifies them in my eyes is that we were no better in our own naivety and trustfulness. So, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius stated that he is very skeptical about the words of NATO Chief Rudd, that Russia might attack NATO and that it's not certain NATO countries would survive it. He said that he does not believe in a Russian attack. Let me remind you that the head of Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, Kirill Sazonov, recently said that there is a high probability that in 2027 Russia will indeed attack, most likely the Baltic countries. This is reality because Putin is moving toward his goals. And his goal is not the Donetsk region, and by and large not even Ukraine. He wants to be a center of influence on the level of the US and China. In other words, to create a tripolar world: Moscow, Beijing, and Washington. And for that, he needs a war with the European Union. If NATO doesn't get involved in this, then, well, specifically the US troops, but instead it's the European Union, then it's quite possible he can go ahead with it, at least for now. The size of Russia's armed forces and military-industrial complex allows for this. It's interesting how Boris Pistorius explains all the provocations, preparations, and threats from Russia. He says that Putin's actions are aimed at undermining the unity of the alliance. For what purpose? Why would Putin want to undermine the unity of the alliance if he doesn't intend to attack it? It's like inviting a naive girl over to your place, you know. You have some wine, turn on the music, dim the lights, and start unzipping her dress. She says, "I suspect your goal is to take my dress off." Of course, yes, nothing more than that. So, Putin supposedly just wants to undermine the unity of the alliance and stop there. My God, the only excuse for them is that we were just as naive in 2021 and at the beginning of 2022. Because, logically, a Russian attack just didn't make sense. It defied common sense. But as experience shows, common sense and Moscow are nowhere near each other. So, with a very high probability, there will be a Russian attack on NATO countries. And then, forgive my schadenfreude, I will gladly watch those self-assured faces who couldn't make use of the frozen Russian assets, who didn't believe Russia could attack, who closed their eyes when drones flew into their territory. How they'll bat their eyes and say, "How could this happen? Who could have thought?" We didn't believe it. We need to urgently gather and express our deep concern. A shake-up will do them good, though it will come at a very high cost. Well, for now, they seriously hope that Ukraine will solve all these problems. And they try to help only in small ways. Well, sooner or later, they'll have to experience all this firsthand. And Ukraine keeps working, keeps fighting, quite toughly. Today I gave a detailed account of which targets were struck in Ukraine and which targets Ukraine struck. Retaliatory strikes, like how the Azov fighters took out a column in the Dobropilya direction. If you're interested in all this news and details about the war and politics, you can always find it on my Telegram channel, Sazonov Official, or on Facebook at Kirill Pravdarub. Here, I mainly just summarize and draw conclusions. Complacency serves countries very, very poorly. And the European armies, which probably haven't fought for 80 years, are not ready for war. The Russian army, for all its shortcomings and all the well-deserved mockery about being the second army in the world, is still a fighting army, one that has been at war with us for 4 years. On a very large scale. They know how to fight, they've learned, but Europe hasn't. And that's why sooner or later the temptation to attack the soft and defenseless will become very strong. All the more so because this is Russia we're talking about. You don't need to provoke them. They always want to attack someone anyway. And then skeptics like Pistorius will be left in tears. But by then, it will be a little too late. Friends, subscribe to my Telegram and Facebook. The links are in the video description. Subscribe to this channel as well. I'll keep you updated on the news. Ukraine turned out to be too much for Putin to handle. I'm not so sure about Europe. Everything will be Ukraine.